Did you know Scarface almost didn't even make it to theaters the way we know it today? Yeah, this movie was way too raw, way too violent, and way too over the top for a lot of people back in 1983. But that's exactly what made it legendary. Al Pacino went so deep into Tony Montana that he literally injured himself. In the middle of shooting the mansion sequence, he grabbed the barrel of a gun that had just been fired and burned his hand so badly. That's not a stunt double story, that's Pacino in real pain, living as Tony Montana. And speaking of pain, that motel chainsaw scene? That wasn't just shocking for the audience, it was shocking for the cast too. They were using a real chainsaw. Nobody was actually in danger, but the tension you see in their faces, the discomfort, the panic, that was all real. Brian De Palma had to recut it 3 times just to barely scrape. Michelle Pfeiffer also went through hell for this movie. She had to get razor thin for her role as Elvira, and she did it by surviving on basically lettuce, tomatoes, and cigarettes. That's it, no real meals, no real fuel, just starving herself to stay in character. Years later, she admitted it was one of the hardest shoots of her career. And then there's Oliver Stone, the guy who wrote the script. He wasn't just making up a wild gangster fantasy. He was writing it while battling his own cocaine addiction. That's why it feels so authentic, so chaotic. He poured his own demons into Tony Montana, and somehow, by finishing Scarface, he managed to beat his addiction too. City officials and Cuban-American groups were furious about how it portrayed immigrants and drug crime. So a lot of the Miami you see on screen, it's actually Los Angeles dressed up as Miami. The city tried to push Scarface away, and now it's the film most people think of when they picture 1980s Miami. Now here's a crazy little cameo for you. Steven Spielberg actually directed a shot in Scarface. Yeah, the guy who made Jaws and E.T. He visited the set and ended up helping film part of the mansion shootout. Imagine that, 2 titans of cinema in one blood-soaked scene. And of course, we can't talk Scarface without mentioning the profanity. This movie dropped the F-bomb over 270 times. That's basically once every 30 seconds. At the time, it was shocking. Critics tore into it, calling it vulgar and disgusting. Today, it's part of what gives Scarface its unfiltered, gritty power. But here's what's really wild. For all its influence, Scarface didn't get a single Oscar nomination. Not one. The Academy thought it was trashy, obscene, way too much. And yet, decades later, Scarface is studied in film schools, quoted in hip-hop, and referenced in pop culture constantly. It went from too vulgar for awards to one of the greatest gangster films ever made. In fact, criminals and rappers loved it way before critics did. Tony Montana became a cultural icon in the streets, representing ambition, excess, and power. You can hear Scarface quoted in songs, see it on murals, it's everywhere. And then, of course, the soundtrack. Giorgio Moroder's synth score gives Scarface its pulse, its neon heartbeat. Producers almost scrapped it because they thought it sounded too futuristic for a gangster movie. But can you imagine Scarface without Push It to the Limit? That music made the film unforgettable. So yes, Scarface isn't just a movie. It's chaos, it's controversy, it's cinema without a filter. Pacino burned his hand, Pfeiffer starved herself, Oliver Stone fought his demons, and Spielberg dropped by for the shootout. If you love these kinds of deep dives, hit like, subscribe, and stick around for more insane movie stories. Say hello to more movie facts.